Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Christine with Patter Crafts, and today I'm going to be making 4 cards using the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month November card kit. And the theme for November was sophisticated and elegant. So with collection 1, I received this really beautiful floral ephemera piece, and I thought it would be a great focal point for a shaker card. So I'm grabbing some glitter paper from the collection using a circle die from my stash that's going to cut the window out for our shaker part. So that little flower ephemera will be seen through there. Just have a scrap piece of acetate here. I'm going to go ahead and glue that down with some Tombow mono adhesive and put that aside to dry. And I decide that the color cardstock that came in the kit just isn't what I want for the look that I'm going for. So I just grabbed a piece of 110-pound black cardstock from my stash for my card base. So while I'm waiting for that to kind of dry, it doesn't take very long. I just get the card base together. Put the panel where I think it's going to go so I can add that floral piece where it will peek through the window. Now on for the foam tape. I'm using 3M foam tape, and this is 3/4 inch thick, so it does require some trimming. I find with this tape, if you cut it really thin and take the backing off, it's really easy to put around curved edges like circles or ovals. And then just using some scraps here to just finish putting some foam tape on this panel. Once that's done, just take the backing off, and I'm going to grab the sequins that came in the kit. Now my sequin pack had like all these little tiny bits. It might be from the middles that are cut out of the sequin, but I thought they were going to make some fabulous little shaker pieces, which they do. So I took some of the bigger sequins out and tried to dump as many of those little ones in as I could. There's a little static with the bag, so I couldn't get them all. Once I have that in place, I'm going to go ahead and press that down and adhere that. So I was looking at the ephemera from the kit and deciding what I wanted for a sentiment. I loved the sentiment here, always yours, but I didn't really like the like little part above and below it. So I just trimmed that off using some pink dye ink to just put along the edges so it'll pop a little bit. And then I'm going to finish that card off with some sequins on the front. Now, anytime I'm using colored cardstock, especially a dark color like black, I always put a white mat on the inside of the card. These white mats I always have on hand. I cut a bunch of them at a time. So I'm using the little butterfly with like the little trail behind it, using some of that same pink ink I used on the front to put that in each of the corners, and that card is done. So for collection 2, I know I really wanted to use this hello tag. It was just so pretty. So I found this solid pink paper, and I'm going to use a rectangle stitched die to cut my front panel. This card's going to be fairly simple because I really want my tag to stand out. So once that's done, I decide I do really want a little bit of something extra on here. I wasn't really finding the 6 sheets of paper I received were really going to work, but I did like the little lace detail on this one. So I ran that through my Cuttlebug with the same rectangle stitch die so the stitching would match on the top, the left, and the bottom. And then I'm just fussy cutting out the little lace detail. Once that is done, I'm going to kind of fiddle to see if I want to layer that on another piece of the pattern paper we received with collection 1. I end up not going with anything because, again, I didn't want anything to take away from the tag. So just, again, using some Tombow mono adhesive and putting that there. Here's that beautiful tag. It says hello. Using a little piece of ribbon that came in the collection. And then I'm going to pop that up on some foam tape. Then I'm going to grab another card base, just some 110-pound black cardstock here. Adhere that to the front, and I do end up putting some sequins to finish it and a white mat on the front, or I'm sorry, on the inside. Now if you're going to do the inside, don't be like me. Put your sequins on after. I had a little trouble with them wanting to keep falling off because I adhered them first and then I tried to put the mat on the inside and the sequins kept falling off. So just go ahead and put that aside. Collection 3 has this beautiful, gorgeous girl stamp from Santoro. And we are going to stamp her down. I'm kind of just looking at what kind of pattern paper I want to use for this card. I don't really have a general idea of what I want at all. So, and I really wanted to use the bling. I don't end up using it, but you'll see it come into the video more than once because it is so pretty, but I just couldn't figure out how I wanted to use it. So I decided I loved this floral pattern paper and I want to use one of these dies from MFT. I'm not sure of the name. I'll put a link in the description below. But they're kind of like rectangular and they have a circled edge and a pointy edge. And I just think they're really fun and a little unique. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this floral pattern with the die that I think is going to go best on my card front. Again, just using another piece of 110-pound black cardstock. I just thought the hot pink and the light pinks really popped against that black cardstock. So I'm just kind of figuring out how much space she's going to take because I really don't want to cover too much of the floral pattern paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere that down right now, and then I'll put that aside and work on how I'm going to stamp out this sweet image. So I'm grabbing a mini scalloped oval die and I'm trying to find the smallest one that will fit the entire image. So once I find that, I grab a piece of watercolor paper because I'm going to use my Arteza Real Brush pens to color her in. I'm using some My Favorite Things Extreme Black ink to stamp her out. I do have to stamp her several times. She has so many like little lines and so there's so much fine detail that in order to get a really good impression, I did need to stamp this out a few times. So once the ink's dry on there, I'm going to go ahead and color her. Because there are so many little fine lines, I'm not really doing any blending. I'm just using the markers just as is. I'm not bringing in my water pen. I'm not bringing in other colors. I'm just using some pretty simple coloring for her. So as you see, I have purple for the main part of her dress, and then I'm using this gray color for the stripes, her little bow, and her tights. I decided to do her tights, the stripes, to be the black and, or the gray, not black, it's gray and purple. I wanted to kind of use black, but I want her shoes to be black, so I didn't want her shoes to match exactly. Then I decided to pull in this blue to first another pop of color. I thought it really stood out against the purple and the darker gray color. I'm going to use that for this part of her dress, and I will bring that back in for the ribbons in her hair. Just using the flesh tone marker for her skin. And I kind of want her hair to be like dark blonde, light brownish kind of color. So I'm using this kind of dark yellow marker, and then I come in with a brown, and I'm just doing like little lines. I'm not really coloring, I'm just drawing lines around her hair because I don't really want to cover up the yellow. Bringing in my black one for her shoes. And of course, we have to add a little wink of Stella. Once she's all colored, I'm going to grab the oval die, and we're going to go ahead and cut this down. And there she is. And again, you see that bling come back out. So once she's there, I kind of play with a few of the little ephemera pieces to see how they would fit. And then I add way too much foam tape to the back. You don't really need that much, but it's on there. So we're going to stick her in the center up on a little foam tape. Put a white mat in the center, and then I'm going to grab that little floral ephemera piece and put that in the corner. And finishing up with just a few of the sequins. And that will do it for this card. Now for the last collection, I get interrupted halfway through this project. So I kind of have an idea in my mind, and then I had to leave and come back to the card. And by the time I came back, that idea had left my brain. So you'll see me kind of thinking a little bit throughout this one. I love the hat in this stamp set. So I decided to stamp it out though on some of this plaid paper instead of coloring it in. So I'm just going to stamp it on the paper and fussy cut it out. And I also stamped like just the rim of the hat where like this little band is, because I wanted that solid gray for the band, but I don't need to stamp out the whole hat for that. Add some Tombow Mono adhesive. And then this is where I realized my fussy cutting wasn't the best, and you can kind of see the lines. So I'm just using this marker to kind of just fill those edges. Put that aside to dry. And this is some gray paper from the collection. Now the paper in this collection is, it's got a slick surface. I wanted the sentiment to be white, but I wasn't sure if my white pigment ink would stamp very well, and I didn't want to chance it. So I got the brilliant idea, we're going to heat emboss this sentiment. What I've learned with heat embossing and this paper is you have to be careful when you're lifting up. See how I'm going over it so many times? Well, I was kind of just like stamping it and lifting it up kind of quickly, and I found it was pulling the ink up with the stamp. It wasn't staying on the paper. So when I slowed that process down, the ink stayed. So if you want to heat emboss on this paper, just do it slowly. So just cleaning up a few areas where I have some extra white embossing powder where I don't want it. The edge of my tweezers here are a little bit sticky, so it kind of picks up those little pieces really, really well. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and heat that up with my heat gun. Clean that up. And now I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with this, because whatever I was thinking I would do, I'm at the point where I don't really remember. So now I'm just kind of, do you ever have that happen where like you have this great idea and then you go to sit down to do it and it just leaves your mind? Maybe that's just me, but I'm really happy with how this card ended up. Just like right now you see like me fiddling a lot with, what was I gonna do? Where was I going with this? So I decided to keep this to be a 4x4 card. And I'm going to use the Grout Gray cardstock for the card base for this card. So because this 4x4 part was kind of big and the hat was kind of small, I decided I needed something over here on the left side. So it just kind of filled in the space a little bit. So just cut a 1/4 inch of this mustard colored solid cardstock. Adhered that with some Tombow mono adhesive, and I really wanted to use these white enamel dots as well, and I thought that against this black paper they looked really nice. And now I'm kind of like filling in all the little spots. I'm really happy with it. Pop up the little hat on some foam tape, and then I'll take off the little excess here. And one thing I did notice on this paper, if you get the liquid glue where you don't want it, you can see it. I don't know if that bothers anybody, but just be aware of that. You want to go easy on the liquid glue if you don't want it to show up on this shinier paper. So put that on my card base, adding another strip of this little mustard color on the inside for just a little added detail, and that will do it for this card. So here are all 4 of the cards I made using the Scrapping for Less November card kit. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more and you're not already, please hit that subscribe button. But until next time, have a great night and bye.